I want to talk now about Bournemouth. We've talked about Portsmouth previously. We talked about a number of different seaside places. Of course, that's where the hotels are. They're heavily, there are a large number of hotels in these seaside places. Places people want to go for a nice holiday, but 3 huge hotels near one of Britain's favourite beaches are being used as accommodation for asylum seekers during the peak summer season. Bournemouth, people there say they're fed up forking out thousands of pounds while illegal migrants are put up for free 200 metres from the seafront. Big story in The Sun today from Julia Atherley, who's the Home Affairs correspondent. She joins me in the studio now. Julia, great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Just tell me about this and the level of anger that's around this.
Yeah, so we went down to Bournemouth yesterday and we looked at 3 enormous hotels, which, as you say, are about 200 metres away from the beach, which is one of Britain's favourite beaches. And we spoke to holidaymakers who are there. It's a huge draw for families in the summertime. About 1 million people go to stay overnight in Bournemouth every year.
1 million people a year?
1 million people
wow,
a year,
okay.
according to the tourist office there, yeah. So people are angry because people spend thousands of pounds going to Bournemouth. I mean, some of the hotels there can be £200 a night during the peak tourist season. And in the middle of all that, you have 3 enormous hotels which are currently being used under Home Office contracts and are housing asylum seekers. So people are angry.
Of course, and actually those contracts for those hotel owners, I just wonder about the hotel owners themselves, how much responsibility they have for this, because if the government comes to you and says we're going to have people there 365 days a year for a number of years, here's a nice contract for you, can you blame them?
I mean, it's they have a choice, don't they? They have a, that, as you say, could seem very appealing to a hotel owner. Maybe during the quieter months, they might not have many rooms filled. But what seems extraordinary is there are people who want to go and stay in Bournemouth. It's a busy place, as you know. If you try and go to the beach in the UK at this time of year, it's heaving. And so the idea that these hotels are being taken over at this time of year in those seaside towns, I think, is what people are finding quite extraordinary.
So what have people been saying to you? You spoke to Susan Beecham, who said, I don't think they should be in hotels like that if they come here illegally, that they're there in the seaside, it makes me cross. Just give me a sense of what people were saying to you yesterday.
I think the main sense that we got yesterday was people are angry at how unfair it seems to them. I mean, they've spent, as I say, potentially thousands of pounds going on a holiday. It's your biggest.
I remember talking to, I think it was Martin Lewis or someone about this, saying that aside from your mortgage, your holiday is probably the biggest single purchase for most people, unless you buy a new car or whatever. It's probably the single biggest purchase people make in a year. So you want it to be perfect, don't you?
Absolutely. And so the idea that there are people who are staying in a similar hotel to the one that you're staying in and forking out for, there are people there who are staying there and not paying for it. People are quite angry about that.
Yeah. Tell me about the plans for coverage over the weekend, because we know an awful lot of different protests are being planned. There's a pro-Palestine action plan. There's a plan for an awful lot of people to protest about these migrant hotels. What will you be doing to kind of cover that? Obviously, we hope it's all peaceful, but it might not be.
Exactly. So as you say, there's dozens and dozens of protests going on around the country this weekend. There's some starting tonight, 5 p.m, kind of outside asylum hotels across the country. So we're monitoring those. As you say, they've been going on for a few weeks now, and most of them have been very peaceful. But when they're not, that's when, we're monitoring them to see what happens. Police have put in plans in place. Some of them have special conditions, so they have to finish by a certain time, for example, and counter-protesters being kept away from protesters and things like that. So we're monitoring them all across the country to see what happens. Yeah,
it'll be really interesting to see what happens there. And there are an awful lot of protests planned as well. I just wonder, just in regard to the hotel situation, you've had reaction from some of the highest levels in politics as well, Shadow Home Secretary, a local MP and so on. Just tell us about their thoughts on all of this.
Yeah, so the official government line on asylum hotels is that they're working to end them by the end of this current parliament. So that's 2029, which might seem quite extraordinary to some listeners. And so, I mean, we had, as you say, we've got Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp in the paper today talking about how these hotels should be given back to the communities, and they shouldn't be, essentially the Labour government should be working quicker, is what
he's saying. The tourist trade as well is being put at risk here, and that's a real worry, I'm sure, for people in Bournemouth and other seaside places across the country as well.
Exactly. I mean, and that's what we heard from holidaymakers who we spoke to yesterday. It's something that they're taking into consideration if you're going away as a family. What surrounds the hotel that you're staying in, and that could be people look at a vast range of considerations, and that's something that they're now taking into consideration.
Okay. Okay, Julia, thanks so much. I hope the weekend is quiet for you. Let's hope those protests are all peaceful, but certainly it's something a lot of people, including a lot of our viewers and listeners, are really concerned about. That's Julia Atherley there, who's Home Affairs correspondent at The Sun. Thanks for joining us in the studio.